Hello, I'm Bill Makala and we're going to be talking about facings. A facing is used when you need to finish a garment edge. Generally, a facing will finish an armhole or a neckline. Sometimes facings can be used to finish a waistline or a hemline. And on some garments, a facing will finish the armhole and the neckline. Generally speaking, there are two types of facings. There's the separate facing. These are individual patterns for an armhole or a neckline, as we have here. Or you have combined facings, or all-in-one facings. These facings cover the armhole and the neckline at one time. So if we remove these, and we create a facing that covers both of them, this is the all-in-one facing, the combined facing. It combines the two pieces. I'm going to show you how to create facings, but before we do that, I'm going to show you two little samples of facings that I have. So on this skirt, I have a facing that faces the edge. There's no waistband on the skirt, and basically this facing is attached, sewn on, folded in, understitched. This one is just a sample, so it's not finished, and then pressed, and then that would be your facing. And the facing would be made out of the same fashion fabric as the actual garment. And you could, in this case, add a lining to the bottom edge of that facing. This is a dress with an all-in-one facing. As you can see, we have the facing around the neckline, the back neckline, and the armhole at the same time. So this is the combined facing. You can see that it's not attached, it gets sewn on, and gets folded in and understitched also. So those are the two types of facings generally you will find in a garment. One thing to remember is that if you have any darts in the facing portion when you create it, you will want to eliminate it. So to create a facing, I'm just going to turn this. What you would want to do is trace off the edge that the facing is going to be attached to. So in this case, it will be the neckline. Remember to mark any notches that you have. And I'm just going a couple inches down the side seam. You don't have to go all the way down. So I have the basic neckline. So facings generally are about 2 inches wide. You could make it a little bit more. It is up to the designer as to how long it's going to be, but generally about 2 inches is sufficient. And what you want to do is mark around the entire neckline edge 2 inches out. This ruler is 2 inches, so I'm just using that. And then on the armhole, the same thing, 2 inches. Just keep rotating the ruler until you have a part of it touching. And then just mark 2 inches all the way around. And the key thing that you want to remember for this type of facing is that you need to make it slightly smaller than the actual garment to reduce the bulk. So at the top edge here and here, you're going to reduce it by 1/16 of an inch. So you're going to measure down 1/16 of an inch and mark it. And then this will be 0 at that point. So you're just going to taper it to 0 there. So you're just trimming off a 1/16 to 0. Same thing here, a 1/16 to 0. So measure down a 1/16 of an inch. And then basically taper it to 0. At the side seam down here, you're going to do 1/8 of an inch. So measure in 1/8 of an inch and taper it to 0 underneath the arm there. And then this piece would become your facing as we have here. And that reduction allows it to fit better inside of there. And the same thing with the neckline. Basically, you don't want to reduce anything at the center front because it would be cut on fold, or there would be a whole production pattern created depending. But this is reduced a 1/16 of an inch to 0, so that neckline stays the same. So that is the front. In the back we have the same thing. There can be differences and I will show you. So in the back it's the same procedure. You're going to trace off that back neckline and armhole. So in the separate piece, I've measured down 2 inches and I've gone around the neckline, once again tapering it from a 1/16 here to 0. And here it's from a 1/16 to 0, and then at the side seam underneath the arm it's 1/8 of an inch to 0. The other thing that you can do for this type of facing is to actually make your center back a little bit longer if you wish. You can do 4 inches here if you wanted to, but you can also, you can see where the original one was, but you can also make it lower down if you want to and taper it back to the same place that the front one will hit so that they both match. So on the back piece I'm going to show you how to do the all-in-one. So I've copied off the neckline. If you have a dart in the shoulder, it'll be eliminated, so you can slash and spread that out. Here you can, it's totally up to you. You could do 2 inches if you want to. Generally it's a little bit longer, so you could do 4 and then just measure 4 inches around. And on the armhole, you can do the 2 inches as we did before, and you're going to see that the two are going to meet or just barely meet. And at that point then you can use your French curves to curve a line. So I will just continue those lines here, marking the 2 inches around the armhole. And this too would be fashion fabric. Remember to mark your notches. So that's sufficient. 4 inches there. And it can be shorter, as I said, but 4 inches is a standard in some places. It can be less. So as you see here, this back facing and this arm facing are very close together, which would add a considerable amount of bulk that you do not want. So what you can do with your French curve is just curve that line down. And then that becomes your back facing. And that's what I did here. Different curve, but you can see curve nonetheless. And on the back, center back stays the same. And in this case, it's actually going to be taken in on this all-in-one facing, 1/8 of an inch to 0 midway in the neckline and 1/8 of an inch to 0 here. So we're reducing it just like we reduced the separate facing pieces, we reduce the all-in-one facings also. So I've reduced it by 1/8 of an inch underneath the arm, just like the front. On here, I did 1/8 of an inch and 1/8 of an inch. And you don't want to take 1/8 of an inch the entire way. So basically you can, when you get out of this curve of the neck, you can make it 0. So it's more of a wedge that's taken out. And then the same thing here. That can just end like that, so that it's a little bit smaller in the shoulders so that it doesn't add so much bulk. So we have an all-in-one facing, and I will put the other part there. And then we have the separate facing that we started with. I hope that helps.